Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 4 of It Doesn't Matter What We Think. I am your host, Miguel Minetti, alongside my co-host, Chris Guzzo. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm ready, Miguel.
Good.
How you doing?
Doing well, man. Doing well. We got a lot to talk about today, so why don't we just kind of jump right into it? Obviously, we're talking all things professional wrestling. So, Chris, I want to talk about probably one of the biggest topics in professional wrestling this past week, and that is the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, instituting that fans could be allowed as soon as early as next week in the state of Florida to resume having fans coming back to sporting events. So I want to talk about what that means for companies like WWE, of course, and AEW, being that they are both being currently filmed in the state of Florida. Ron DeSantis said initially that 25% of the capacity would be allowed in Florida, then would eventually transition to 50%, then up to 75, and then 100, with, of course, social distancing taking place. So, Chris, right off the bat here, what are your initial thoughts on that?
I still think that it's too dangerous to bring back fans right away. I know that WWE was going live and they went back to doing taped shows for Raw and SmackDown because the wrestlers weren't pleased. So they might be continuing that schedule of taped Raws and SmackDowns until maybe the end of July, possibly August. So I don't know if WWE will go right back to having fans in attendance right away. AEW has a pay-per-view coming up. I think May 23rd, they have Double or Nothing pay-per-view. So they might use the fans in attendance. Like you were saying, they're using 25% capacity. I'm not sure how many people are allowed in the performance center of WWE, what the actual max capacity of the event would be. There's questions to raise. I wonder how much the ticket sales would be. I wonder a fan, you're walking into the gate. Are you stopped by security? Do they take your temperature? Are you required to wear masks while you're attending the event? Are you allowed to take the masks off once you get into your seat? How many feet apart are you and your friend if you go to the event? Are you guys allowed to sit together? Are you guys 6 feet apart? Another great question is, are they going to put up plastic to separate the fans and the wrestlers? Like an ice rink? You're not going to have the same experience. The fans aren't going to be able to touch the wrestlers at ringside. So I'm just wondering, like, what all these restrictions are going to be. They're going to definitely have to hire more security in the building to stop fans from possibly touching the wrestlers or keeping safety between, fans. What are your takes on some of these restrictions?
I have a lot of the same questions you do, right? And I think my biggest question is, who do you allow in versus not allow in? So if you're only allowing 25% of the venue's capacity to come in for the show, let's say an arena, right, and especially AEW, where they're in a bigger size arena right now than WWE, if that venue seats, 5,000 people, right, 25% of that, you're still allowing 1,500 people in there. What if more than 1,500 people want to go to the show, right? How do you allow, is it first come, first served? Or are they picking special fans out of the audience? Or are they just planting? Are they going with the full 1,500? Same thing with the Performance Center. I think that arena only holds maybe 1,000 people at capacity. So 25% of that is 250 people. How do you pick and choose which 250 people you would let into the show? Those are a lot of questions I have. I don't know if it's going to take place just because the Florida governor said so as early as next week. I know I read something on Twitter, and I know you and I talked about it off air, that in August they're looking to run their first max capacity shows back again, both WWE and AEW. Personally, I think SummerSlam is the perfect target for WWE at this moment. I mean, it's still 3 months away, 3.5 months away. Still have plenty of time to kind of look at the data to see if numbers are going down in the positive COVID-19 cases. There's enough time to see if maybe some sort of antidote comes out for the virus. So just because Florida governor says so, I don't know if Vince and Tony Khan are willing to risk their reputation by having fans in there immediately.
What about you as a fan? You're a diehard fan. You love to go to the events more than me.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to go into an arena with other fans prematurely to enjoy a WWE event? Really think about it. What if they make you sign something that says they're not responsible if you got COVID-19? Would you still go? Would you enjoy a sausage sandwich with your friend and cheer on Drew McIntyre?
I don't know, man. That's a tough question. I could tell you right now. All right. Me and my friends, we have tickets for SummerSlam in August in Boston. Right. We're in August. As of today, I'm excited. I want to go to Boston in August. Now, if that event was taking place this month, would I be as eager to want to go? I mean, yeah, the fan of me says absolutely I want to go, but as a human being, right, and trying to be responsible, I honestly don't know. I really don't know if we would go. I mean, if WWE made me sign something, or even AEW for that matter, and I'd go to a show that said, hey, we're not held liable for anything, it would make me feel, it probably would make me feel a little bit more uncomfortable, to be honest with you. How about you? Would you go?
Well, before I answer that, you brought up a great point. Now, will that event, SummerSlam, be at full capacity? And if it's not, let's say it's at 50% capacity, they're going to have to take give money back to some fans, right? So some people that bought tickets are going to have to be refunded.
Yeah.
So I really wonder what they're going to do as far as refunding tickets that are already sold for events that are going to take place in a couple of months, or what they're going to do from the first live event. Me personally, I would not go to the WWE events or an AEW event right now. My safety comes first. And to be honest with you, the content that they're providing, I'm not really excited to even watch it from a couch at home. But neither here nor there, I would definitely pick safety over stupidity.
As of today, let's say you had tickets to SummerSlam, would you be looking forward to going in August 23rd?
Like I said, I'd have to see how they did phase one. I'd probably try to sell my ticket, maybe next year, not this year.
Yeah, man, it's a interesting topic for sure, right? I mean, no one knows what's right, what's wrong. Obviously, people are nervous out there, but I don't know. I think I'm living in this fairy tale world where I hope I wake up July 15th and I'm like, oh, wow, things are so much better than they were on May 3rd. But
well, think about everything else. I mean, SummerSlam is pretty much just like WrestleMania, right? So you're outside the arena. People are tailgating. People are close by next to each other. You're going to use a porta potty that 50 other people use that aren't sanitary. How are they going to do that? The bathroom lines, people, like I said, people buying merchandise, constantly touching. You could use masks and you could use gloves. But what about when alcohol is involved? There's a lot of drunk people at those tailgate parties.
yeah.
So I don't know if people are going to be so careful come SummerSlam.
What do you think is a better target? I mean, do you think, like, let's say you had tickets or wanted to go to WrestleMania next year in LA, would you feel more comfortable going then?
I would feel more comfortable once they came out with an antidote or a vaccine. Yeah. Maybe in a year it'll be much safer, because they have more knowledge on this virus. But right now, I think, like I said, it's too unsafe to do anything.
I mean, I think the biggest, obviously, health aside, the number one reason that I want things to go back to normal, besides, of course, health, is having fans back in attendance. I know these shows have definitely been hurting, particularly Raw being 3 hours, right? Feels a lot more like a marathon. So I want to kind of transition to this past week on Raw and just talking about the landscape of both WWE and AEW overall, but particularly on Raw, right? I know one of the things that we've talked about off air and we've been seeing on the news and on social media is the declining ratings of especially Monday Night Raw. So Chris, I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that topic.
Just to throw out a little fact, Raw scored a 1.817 million viewers. So this is the lowest non-holiday week Raw viewership in history. So Vince McMahon has gone out on public record saying that they don't have their superstars post-WrestleMania, like a Brock Lesnar. They're missing Roman Reigns and other big superstars due to the coronavirus. They're also saying, like, to your point, that there's just no WWE fans and people just don't want to watch it because it's hard to watch without any fans. This is a sports entertainment sport that's based off of fans' reactions, and we're just not getting it. And we could talk about the product after. I want to hear your comments before I speak on the actual product. But I mean, they could do something with fans, even if they got people on FaceTime or Zoom, fans, and saw the reactions, and they could show like a minute or 2 minutes of clips of what fans, where they stand on each segment on Raw or SmackDown or each storyline. It's kind of like running out there with a chicken without a head. You have no idea how the fans are reacting. I mean, they know obviously from like Twitter and comments that are posted to the WWE website, but like as me, a viewer watching, I think I would find it more interesting to see how fans react to each segment, even if it's pre-taped. If they show this week on Raw what fans thought of last week's Raw segment, and maybe show like 2-3 minutes of people just like me and you know, going on, commenting, talking about with their friends. Of course, they're going to have to filter it out and make sure like nobody curses or says anything terrible on these FaceTimes. But I would love to see some kind of fan reaction. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, and you know, I'm a diehard WWE fan, and I try to defend them tooth and nail a lot of times in what they do. But right now, I mean, I like some of the stories they're telling and the in-ring action for sure, but it's definitely not the same. I mean, you know, every week now, and it's been going on like this, for 45, 60 days, where the wrestlers are performing in the ring. It's silent. I mean, the announcers are trying to do their part. They're trying to talk. I know they'll have like, you know, the managers or valets ringside, and which I know we're going to get into, talk about as well. But there's just something I wish they could be doing. I watch AEW, and, you know, I know they have a few of the wrestlers ringside. And honestly, I mean, I know some people are of the opinion that it sounds a lot better, but to me, it's almost the same. I mean, yeah, it's cool. It'd be cool probably to have a few people ringside, but obviously fans like us that are watching the show, we know these are just the wrestlers ringside. They're not actual fans. They're not chanting, you know, let's go Cena or you suck or, you know, anything like that. I mean, these are just, you know, Billy Gunn. I saw Dr. Britt Baker out there. I saw a few other wrestlers that are out there. Sean Spears out there. I think it's cool just to hear a little bit more noise, but at the end of the day, I personally don't think anything's going to be better until things go back to normal when we can have fans in attendance.
The thing is that there's a huge exposure on how fake and contrived the production is of WWE. I'll give you a quick example. I know we're on Raw. I was watching SmackDown on Friday night, and I watched the segment where they showed Jeff Hardy's part 4, and Sheamus is getting annoyed that Michael Cole is announcing this segment. And what happens is Sheamus does a squash match. He walks out right next to Michael Cole, and he waits for the video to end before he says anything. And you could just tell how fake and scripted it is, that like he's waiting for his cue and now it's time to talk. And it takes away that the Raw and SmackDown product being unpredictable, that question of like what is going to happen. And a lot, you know, they are struggling because a lot of like big WWE superstars right now are not on Raw or SmackDown. I think SmackDown is a much stronger show than Raw. Raw seems like this show with a lot of filler. There's no momentum. It's just matches and things happening. I watched Jerry the King Lawler announce the signing, the contract signing between Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre for Money in the Bank. And the way Lawler presented this, it seemed like he was saying a story, reading a story to a child before they were going to sleep. Very monotone, very quiet, and no momentum. And, you know, that just says it all for how the show is going, the direction of the show. So you could blame the fans not being in attendance all you want, but the product also is horrible, in my opinion. It seems like they're almost not trying, or they're introducing these people that came from NXT, but there's just no story to it. And I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, and I think you said it just perfectly, right? A lot of the people, especially on Raw right now, are coming up from NXT, right? And I think the issue with that is there's a portion of the audience that never watches NXT.
Right.
And obviously these people can't get over, right? They can't get over right now because there's no audience to help them get over, right? When a wrestler usually makes their debut and they come up from NXT, that initial reaction they get from the crowd kind of dictates how far they're going to go and how quickly they're going to make that journey, right? So when you have someone like Austin Theory coming up, and he's never been seen in the arena to the mass public before, it's hard to really get excited about somebody like that unless you watch NXT, right? There's a good portion of the audience that only watches Raw and SmackDown. They don't watch NXT. So they see the guy like Austin Theory come out and they're thinking, who the hell is this? I've never even heard of this guy. And they don't have those fans in attendance to back it up. Because had Austin Theory made his debut in front of a crowd, and let's say the crowd was cheering for him, they could have easily been like, oh, okay, I don't know this guy, but he sounds like he's a pretty good wrestler.
Wait a minute. I disagree with you. And a couple of years ago, there was no NXT. Or, like, yeah, there's diehard fans that know, like, the wrestlers in the NXT division. Or what was it before NXT? It was, like, Florida wrestling.
FTW.
Yeah. So diehard fans know these people that are coming. But a lot of the mainstream fans, they just, like you said, watch Raw and SmackDown. So
right.
When these people come on Raw and SmackDown, they come from NXT. We have no idea who they are. So I think the problem lies with the storytelling. You know, I mean, let's take NXT away. We don't need that. How are they introducing these characters? They're just putting them on television. There's no momentum. Why do I care? It's just like watching a movie or a television show. Why am I going to care about this character? You know, a lot of these younger talents, maybe they should be in the ring with the veterans, or they should start off as managers, or like the old-fashioned way where they were in squash matches, and little by little they get billed, and little by little they get TV time. I think it's, you know, to say that because NXT and like people can't cheer them now, I think that's a lame excuse for character building in WWE. It's just, what do you think? Tell me.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's tough. I mean, I definitely understand your thought process on that, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but I think that initial reaction, especially because we've been accustomed to NXT being on television for the last 6 years now, right? Whether it was on the network or now it's on USA, I think that definitely dictates a portion of it. I'll tell you one person, though, who's made out like a bandit during this, and that's Selena Vega, right? So if obviously for those of you that have been watching Raw, and she has her stable now on Monday Night Raw, this girl is all over television on WWE Raw. She's on almost every other segment with Andrade and Austin Theory and Angel Garza. I mean, every week you see these three particularly having 15, 20-minute segments each. So she's taken up probably about an hour of Raw. If anyone's made out the most during this quarantine process, where a lot of the veterans don't want to work, or a lot of them like Roman Reigns, right, who have preconditioned health issues, don't want to come into the ring, I think people like Selena Vega have certainly taken this opportunity and made the most of it. What do you think about that?
What's the name of the faction?
I don't think there is.
They don't have a name, right? So she manages Andrade, she manages Angel Garza, and Austin Theory. So there's these three guys, right? There's no gimmick to these three people other than, look, it's three people I'm managing, and one of them is the U.S. title holder. There's no story behind it. Why are they together? Just because they decided to put these three people together and give them airtime? You know, these three people, I know you're talking about Selena, and I'll get to her in a second, but the three people that she's managing, you know, they keep showing them losing every week on Raw. I don't know if it's building to a storyline where they're going to separate Austin Theory, Angel Garza, and Andrade away from each other, kind of create that kind of conflict and tension because Selena is managing all three of them. But it just, there's nothing to it. They came out on Monday Night Raw to the MVP Lounge, which was such a boring segment. Why did they bring this guy MVP back? They could have brought anybody else back and put a microphone in them. I couldn't stand him 12 years ago when he was in SmackDown. He was the U.S. Heavyweight champ, and I cannot stand him now. A lot of Raw and this is not saying SmackDown, Raw. When I watch Raw and I watch the talent on Raw, I'm like cringing, like, oh, this is the segment. Oh, this is what they're putting on now. Oh, this is how they're opening the show. And I don't know. To her favor, Zelina Vega, it's great opportunity, like you said. I think she's a great talker. She has a great look to her, but it's just boring. It's just boring to me. It's just when they come out, I cringe and I don't get like that excitement. Did you see that when they came down to that segment on the MVP lounge and Angel Garza, he kicked the pole and the pole almost hit him back? It was kind of funny.
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't know. What are your thoughts? Did they excite you? Do you get excited when they come out?
I mean, I think a lot, a theory, there's a lot left to be desired, right? He hasn't talked, I don't think, at all. We don't know anything about him. Andrade, obviously, is the most tenured of the three because he's been on the main roster for quite some time now, and he was in NXT beforehand, and he was actually a former NXT champion. So I know his backstory, but I'm actually most impressed and excited for the future of Angel Garza. I think this guy is money. I've said this to you before, and I know I've said this to my friends. He reminds me a lot of Eddie Guerrero.
With the rose.
Yeah, I mean, this guy just bleeds charisma. He's giving Charlie Caruso roses, right? He's hitting on her blatantly. Before the whole quarantine thing, he would come out and he would have girl fans kiss him on his cheek, right? The guy rips off his pants just to reveal his tights. I mean, this guy has money written all over him. I don't know if they're ever going to push him to be a top main event star like they did with Eddie Guerrero. I'm not saying he'll ever be Eddie Guerrero status, but I think out of the three, this is the guy I'm most impressed with. What do you think?
That's your opinion. Like I said, I just think it's a boring segment, and it feels like TV filler to me. And they have to drastically change their show on Raw. I know you're saying it's great that Zelina Vega has a lot of airtime, but I looked at it as like 4 segments of boredom. It just doesn't do it for me. I don't think Andrade against Drew McIntyre, even though they had a past in NXT like you're talking about, it didn't excite me a couple of weeks ago that this was his opponent. It just I don't know. There's just nothing that gets me excited that I want to talk about it or watch it.
Right.
So that's why I think like Raw definitely needs like a tremendous like reboot. I like watching even Jinder Mahal. It was great to see him back. That could be a great opponent down the line for Drew McIntyre. They could do all these squash matches. Maybe he could win the Money in the Bank. I feel like Andrade is going to be the one that gets the opportunity at Money in the Bank. Because what's his name got injured?
Apollo.
Apollo Crews got injured with the knee injury. So Andrade might be the person, the last person, the entrant in the Money in the Bank.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'll save my comments because I know next week we're going to do our prediction show for Money in the Bank. But you said something. Yeah, you said something earlier that I wanted to kind of talk about as well too, and that's what's going on the other show, right, on SmackDown with the whole Jeff Hardy angle. So over the last 4 weeks now, they've been showing the kind of rise and fall of Jeff Hardy. I think the first episode they talked about Jeff Hardy's first stint as part of the Hardy Boys, one of the legendary tag teams in WWE, to kind of transition then to, his drug addiction and alcohol problem that he had, to him being released just to make the triumphant comeback at WrestleMania, 33 in Orlando, Florida, that I was at. One of the best reactions I've ever heard from a live crowd before. I get goosebumps just still thinking about it. But, the way they're positioning this comeback story is, I think Jeff Hardy's going to have one final run in 2020 at the WWE, or in this case, the Universal Championship. My question to you, Chris, is, does Jeff Hardy belong in the main event scene in 2020?
To be honest with you, I've seen this story about 15 times in the last 10 years. The Jeff Hardy redemption story, how many times are they going to go back to the well for this story? How many times? I mean, he's a great performer. I know he has a lot of demons, but how many times are they going to exploit it in a storyline? We saw it in 2010 or 2011 when he fought Sting in TNA, and he was too high to continue the match. Several times he's been arrested, charged with drugs, assault. There's a lot of times they put this in the storyline, and I'm just like tired of that same storyline over and over. Is that gimmick of like Jeff Hardy, he did drugs, now he's redeemed, and now it's time to like be the wrestler that he was always destined to be again. And I don't know. I don't see him as a good person to do one last title run. I could see him maybe scrapping with Edge at SummerSlam. That might be interesting because they have like old history together. If they can think of some kind of good storyline between him and Edge, or even align his comeback with Edge's and like make them clash at SummerSlam would be kind of interesting. I would also think, off topic, but another interesting match if you want to bring back Brock Lesnar would be Brock Lesnar versus Edge at SummerSlam. That's another cool one, you know, because they have no reason to bring back Brock Lesnar. Anyway, going back to Jeff Hardy, again, I said before with the Sheamus that it seemed very contrived and forced that he's going against Michael Cole. I don't understand what Michael Cole has to do with Jeff Hardy other than him announcing him on SmackDown. There's no past history in it. I don't see what's the buildup. I'll ask you, what's the buildup between Jeff Hardy and Sheamus? Is that because Sheamus came back? I mean, where's the story? What's the story?
I think I don't think. What happened?
Nothing.
Okay. I don't think they've done a good job yet of kind of talking what the story is about. But if I had to guess, it's probably because in Sheamus's mind, they're paying a lot more attention to the return of Jeff Hardy than they are to the return of Sheamus, right? I know Sheamus has been on and off the last 2 months now, just doing these squash matches against, against some jobbers. But at the end of the day, I think this is just my prediction, is that eventually Sheamus is going to reveal, why does Jeff Hardy get the spotlight? I mean, I'm sure Sheamus is going to throw in his face, you've been arrested countless times, right? You've had drug addiction, you've had alcohol addictions. Why does the WWE keep giving you that limelight when they have someone like me that can perform better than you? That itself, to me, is the story they should tell. They haven't done a great job yet, if that's the path they're going down. But hopefully starting next week, because they think they've showed the end of these Jeff Hardy returns, and they said Jeff's going to return to the ring next week, maybe that's where they'll go with it.
See, I think that this specific storyline is damaged because there are no fans. So, like, this would have been a great opportunity to show Jeff Hardy and Sheamus both at an autograph signing. A huge line for Jeff Hardy. Nobody comes to see Sheamus. So, like, it kind of sucks that, there's these opportunities that are wasted with these storylines because you can't involve like the fans. So this is like a good example of like something maybe it should have been pushed in a month or 2 months, because if like I said, if you're going with that story of like this guy, the fans get behind him, how many times is the WWE machine going to get behind him? I feel like you have to show the fans and like where they stand on Jeff Hardy and where they stand on Sheamus, because then you could give that vibe of him being a jealous guy.
But what about Jeff Hardy being one more time as Universal or WWE champion? Do you want to see it? I mean, personally, I would love to see it one more time. I think that nostalgia feel is great. What?
Why?
I just think Jeff Hardy draws, right? I mean, when you have a guy that can draw money and draw fans, obviously right now, no fans, but once things eventually get back to normal, a guy that can draw WWE fans into the building, right? That when that music hits, especially if they bring back his solo song that he used in like 2009, the fans are going to go nuts for this guy. I can tell you that right now. I mean, he's a proven draw. When you have a Universal champion, a World Heavyweight champion coming out, and the fans are on their feet, that creates excitement in the building, in my opinion.
But there's like no emotion. Like they could have if they're going to do this storyline the 17th time of him being a drug addict and redemption, right? Perfect opportunity. He has kids. They show the kids in the video packages. He could show that he's a horrible father, or that he's trying to do another chance. Sorry. He's trying to redeem himself with his kids, and his kids don't trust him anymore. And it could show that he has something to prove to try to get his kids back. In order to do that, he wants to become the Universal Champion or one last run with it as the champ and show that to his kids that he is greatness again. And like, I just feel like there's so many missed opportunities with different storylines in WWE these days. It just goes flat. If they're going to go a route, they should build it up with a lot of conflict and payoff.
But do you like seeing these nostalgic 90s and early 2000 wrestlers making a triumphant comeback?
If it's not Jeff Hardy in the same storyline that we've seen 15 times, I do. But like, I'll give you an example, okay? Goldberg, right? That was a great thing. He wanted to be the champion to show his kid that he was the champion. I thought that was like a great build-up for like him versus Brock Lesnar. He was his kid's hero. He was hero to other children. So if they should give Jeff Hardy that kind of edge, maybe he's a hero to his kids. You know, his kids have been disappointed time and time again by his actions. He has to redeem himself. How is he going to redeem himself? By becoming the WWE champion one more time and proving that he's like on the right road. It's, you know, storytelling.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense. The other big topic on SmackDown this past week, right, which I was shocked, and I think I didn't get a chance to watch it live. I think you're the one that texted me and kind of broke the news to me even, was that WWE has announced for the first time ever the men's and women's Money in the Bank ladder match are going to be taking place at the exact same time. So a lot of thoughts around this, because now the question brings up, is this going to be filmed cinematic style? Are they going to shoot it live where it's just going to be chaos happening at the in Stamford, Connecticut at WWE headquarters? Chris, what do you make of this?
Before I get into that, I just want to say I've been watching this show on Vice every week. It's called, not to plug it, I'm not working for Vice. I don't write for Vice, but there is this excellent documentary called Vice, Dark Side of the Ring. And they have episodes that include the Chris Benoit murder. They have the Macho Man Randy Savage when he died. They have tons of episodes, Superfly Jimmy Snuka. And the last episode that they had, excuse me one second. The last episode that they had this week was about the wrestler from the mid-'80s. His name is David Schultz. And it was about the incident when he slapped the reporter John Stossel. So this occurred in 1990 in a WWE programming, where Stossel came up to Schultz and he said wrestling is fake, and Schultz slapped him right in the face and knocked him on his ass. And the reason I bring up that point is that he, at the time, his mentality was that he was protecting the business. He was protecting what we call kayfabe. So they were trying to say that at that time, wrestling was fake, and David Schultz was protecting the business, showing like, this isn't fake, and he slapped the reporter. Ruined his whole career, but it just goes to show you how different the psychology and the mentality was come 30 years ago. And then 30 years later, we're doing a Money in the Bank 2020 in the WWE headquarters, and we're talking about cinematic matches. And we're talking about if this Money in the Bank match is going to be cinematic, is it pre-taped during the week? Everybody knows that the business is completely exposed now. And, you know, I kind of miss that what if factor. I mentioned it in every podcast of like suspending disbelief for a moment, to saying maybe that wrestling is real. And, you know, these days, we all know that wrestling is fake, and I feel like that the WWE writers go with that. Having said that, I'm going off a little topic. We'll go back to, you asked me a question, what do I think about the Money in the Bank ladder match taking place simultaneously? I think that it obviously has to be pre-recorded. And now, last week I said that it should look live and not cinematic. It might have to look cinematic in this way because there's just so much going on. How am I going to watch 10 people back and forth? Are they going to have like 4 cameras, like the left, the right, top, and the bottom? Are they going to have like all this action going on at one moment? It's a great idea to like promote the event, but to actually think about like watching this event, there might be a lot of clutter and confusion with the Money in the Bank. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think right off the bat, right? I think we could both admit this is the most exciting thing that's happened in WWE since WrestleMania, right? If Money in the Bank were just going to happen live in the Performance Center with no fans, sure, the Money in the Bank ladder matches, I knew they would deliver regardless, but we both have to at least admit WWE is definitely making newsworthy television, right? By saying, hey, first and foremost, these matches are taking place in headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut, where the Money in the Bank briefcase is going to be on the roof and where everyone's going to be on the ground floor. But now they're adding an extra element to say, hey, the men's and women's match is going to take place at the exact same time. So right off the bat, I got to applaud WWE for giving us something that we've obviously never seen before. I think my question, that I have to ask myself is this going to be something that's just a car wreck, right? Is it going to be something where, like you mentioned earlier, where they're just going to have hidden cameras all over the place and it just becomes ridiculously insane to follow? Or is there more of a methodical method to it where they tape it cinematic style and say, okay, well, they could even do something like, we're going to show you portion of it and then we're going to cut back live and, between matches, right? So like, okay, the match starts off, everyone's on ground floor, and then you see guys going to ground or to floor number 2 or whatever. And the women, maybe some of them are on floor 2 and some of them are on floor 1. But hey, we're going to cut back now to the next match. And after the next match, we're going to follow back of what's happening. So I think there's a lot of ways they can go with it. I, for one, am excited to see what they're going to do with this.
Is the entire pay-per-view taking place at the headquarters or just a Money in the Bank match and the rest is taking place at the Performance Center?
Yeah, what you just said, that's what's going to happen.
Back to simultaneous, the women's match happening at the same time as the men's match. Like I said, and in all the other segments, I need story. And I thought there was such a great opportunity on SmackDown. I always book the matches and get all excited, and then I get disappointed when nothing turns out the way I thought. But I thought that it was such an awesome thing that what they could have did was they could have made Otis win, which he did on SmackDown, and they could have made Mandy Rose win instead of losing that qualifying match on SmackDown. And a great reason to have the men's and the women's match together was they could have had Otis going up on one ladder, Mandy Rose going up on the second ladder, and what happens is Dolph Ziggler comes out somewhere from the headquarters, runs up, throws Mandy Rose and another girl. He throws the other girl off of the ladder. He takes the briefcase, the women's briefcase, off, and he smashes Otis in the face with it, sending him off the ladder. Then he hands it to Mandy Rose. And then it would be great. What does she do? Does she accept it and win the title, or does she see if Otis is okay? I thought that would have been like this amazing storyline, and it would have been a great way of why are we showing women and men both in this Money in the Bank ladder match? It would have gave a great story, but they didn't go that route. I don't know.
Actually, that's a great idea. I love that.
I thought of a bunch of ideas, and like I said, I psyched myself up. I thought, they could do a bunch of crazy things. They could show Vince McMahon in the hallway yelling at a marketing guy and firing him while the match is going on. I hope that they show people actually working in the building while this is going on. They could have two people from the men or the women that the entire match they are climbing up the building. And then they could have one big stunt where one of them falls off the building. I heard rumor that Vince McMahon fell from the tower last week to try a stunt that might be happening in Money in the Bank. So somebody might be falling, might be falling off of the WWE headquarters in this match. Other cool things that could happen is they could show people in the marketing room about Shayna Baszler, they're showing a PowerPoint of her on the screen, and her and another girl knock into the wall, smash right through it. So they're showing the thing, and it smashes right through there. There's all these great opportunities. The Iron Sheik could be mopping the floor. Little cameos of people who've been working there for over 60, 50 years. So,
I mean, they got to go they got to go to Vince's office, right? That's got to be the number one thing everyone wants to see is his actual corner, massive office with, I'm sure there's windows everywhere. I want them to go into that office and just break something, maybe break his desk or like smash a picture of like the McMahon family. Like, could you imagine? I don't know who would even do it. I can't even think who, but imagine one of them just takes a family photo, right? A massive portrait of the McMahon family, because they have one, and just smashes it over the other person's skull. And Vince is like, damn it, that's my family photo. I think that rates itself.
That'd be awesome. There's so many things, so many ways they could go with this match, and it could be visually very very interesting.
Do you think that it's going to definitely be filmed cinematic? I don't know if we kind of clarified your thoughts, but what are your thoughts? Do you think it's definitely going to be filmed cinematic style now, or do they still go live shoot, in your opinion?
I think that they might have to go cinematic because they're going to have to cut back and forth and like edit it well. It can't be. How are they going to show 10 people at one time? I'm sure like 10 people aren't going to all be on the same floor. Maybe there'll be 2 people here, 2 people there, but they'll have to show it like a movie. They'll cut to this scene, and then they'll cut to this scene, and they'll go back to this scene. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean,
definitely the most interesting Money in the Bank match they've had ever.
Yeah, I for one am looking forward to next Sunday. Like I mentioned earlier, I know we're going to do our prediction show, so we'll talk next Sunday about who we think is going to win each match and why. But
I want to bring up one last thing. It's kind of not on the Money in the Bank, but from watching SmackDown, I just want to bring up this segment. Did you watch SmackDown? Did you watch it this week? This Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman, this whole rivalry, right? This guy, Bray Wyatt, man, he is so dedicated to the character and so real. His segments are awesome. He's sitting there reading the Black Sheep, and I feel bad for Bray because Braun Strowman does not bring anything to the table. He seems so rehearsed, okay? So all he says is, get these hands, right? So at Money in the Bank, maybe they should challenge that. Maybe they should have Wyatt handcuff him behind his back, and he can't use like these hands. I also think that this segment, and I know they only have like one more week for the build up to Money in the Bank, so I hope they don't miss this opportunity. He is such a Braun Strowman is such a 2-dimensional character, very simple. He's gonna wreck everybody, but I feel like they could add a dimension to Braun, and this rivalry would give a great opportunity. What if they show the backstory of Braun Strowman? Maybe he's somebody who did something very horrific in his life, and he was living in the woods, and Bray Wyatt found him in the woods, and he took him in, and he fed him, he taught him, he mentored him, and then at the last minute, he got stabbed in the back by this guy, Braun Strowman. But he knows his dark, dirty secrets. If they said that, come this next SmackDown, they could have the match, not reveal it, and make the storyline go another month or 2 with people wondering, what did this guy do? And they could add a 3rd dimension to his character.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think this week's SmackDown is going to be very telling on how dedicated they are to this story. I think one of the things, and I think we talked about it last week, is it's not the Fiend fighting Braun Strowman next Sunday. It's Bray Wyatt, right? We call him the sweater-wearing Bray Wyatt.
Which that's what you said? They made that clear?
Yeah, it's not the Fiend. And they've done that once before, if you remember, back in December when he fought The Miz. It was the sweater-wearing Bray Wyatt. And I think he won by disqualification, because that's when Daniel Bryan came out and gave him the running knee right to the face. But I'm interested to see what they do with this, because the title's on the line, and something tells me that probably Bray Wyatt, as sweater-wearing Bray Wyatt, may not win the title back.
You think that they're going to keep the title on Braun Strowman?
No, I think, well, again, we'll talk about this
Giving it away.
We'll see it for next week, my thoughts, but I think something wonky could certainly happen with that. But I think more importantly, this next week on SmackDown, the same thing with Raw, right? And I'm looking forward, truth be told, to Seth versus McIntyre as well. I think this week's Raw and SmackDown, they have one final chance to make these matches have a lasting impact because, let's be honest, Money in the Bank is 3 matches. It's the men's and women's simultaneous ladder match. It's Seth versus McIntyre, and it's Braun versus Bray Wyatt. And these 3 matches need to deliver. You can add 3 more matches, 4 more matches if you want, but these 3 main event matches need to deliver in order for it to be a good pay-per-view, in my opinion.
I'll say this. This is my last thing I'll say. Everything that they do, if they have an A-lister, a superstar wrestler, or a D-lister, a guy who's inexperienced from NXT, or a veteran, the main thing is the storylines and the story behind each character. And like I said, that's why Raw is just boring, because there's no build to these characters. And I truly feel, and like I said, the coronavirus and the fans not being in attendance is a huge attribute. It has everything to do with the ratings going down, with the product watching it. It's hard to watch, but at the same time, it kind of stunk before the fans left, and they never really picked it up. And honestly, the ratings were going down before the fans left the arenas. And you got to have great content. It's just simple, simple. Good storytelling makes me want to watch.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree with you. I think, and I know I said this before, so I won't go too deep into it, but I was very much looking forward to WrestleMania before this whole issue went down. I think they had a lot of momentum going. Yeah, I know ratings maybe aren't as high as they used to be, but that's a whole nother topic that we could probably dedicate a whole show to. My thoughts on ratings, what they mean in 2020 versus what they meant 20 years ago. But yeah, again, I think we could both agree definitely that Money in the Bank next Sunday is something that
I forgot to ask you. Do you think they're gonna show like Vince's office, like this big office, and then they're gonna make a joke like they show Triple H's office, and it's like this small little office that has like all these papers in it, almost like Office Space. There's like one dingly light, to kind of make a joke. I don't know. That would be cool.
That would be funny. But yeah, so Chris, I know next week we're going to dive into Money in the Bank specifically. I'm very much looking forward to that.
I'm going to have my picks ready. I'm going to be ready for that. It's going to be
yeah. Have your picks ready. That is it for this week, guys. We appreciate you guys all watching us and tuning in for It Doesn't Matter What We Think, our podcast that we're going to be hosting weekly. Chris, we have a brand new Twitter handle, so we do want our fans here to follow us on Twitter, on social media, and you can follow us at Minetti Guzzo Pod. So that's MinettIGuzzopod. So you can follow us on Twitter. Our name is, of course, our podcast name, which is It Doesn't Matter What We Think. We hope for you guys to follow us on social media and tune in next week when we go and dive right into the Money in the Bank prediction show. So, Chris, that is it for today. I thank you, my friend, for joining on, and I look forward to speaking next week around this.
Me too, Miguel. Thank you, man.
All right. Take care, buddy.
You too.